So from technical perspective, uh, it's pretty easy to get started with Oskari. We have a zip that you can download from Oskari.org that has a bundled Tomcat with it. So what you need is Java 17 or more recent and a Postgres database. And you can just download the zip, unzip it, and start the Tomcat. Point the you will need to configure the database connection for the Tomcat, but that's about it. So that what you get there is what you see in demo Oskari today. So that's kind of the quick start for seeing if you can run an Oskari based service. But what you usually want to do is you want to modify it somehow. So for that, once you have the bundled Tomcat running, you can replace either the front-end application or the server application by building your own versions of that. And we have a template repository for both the front-end and the server that you can just you can clone them, but they are marked as templates on GitHub, so it has the button to, I don't remember what it reads, maybe use as template or something like that next to the cloning. But that's the way to get started on customizing your Oskari-based application. Version upgrades are usually easy to do. Most of the code that we provide is in the Git repositories, Oskari server and Oskari frontend. And we have a Maven repository as well, hosted on Oskari.org, that has the pre-built server-side code that you can just use as dependencies on your own applications. The front-end build is a bit more involved, but pretty standard for an NPM based JavaScript application. When you upgrade the Oskari version, we use a library called Flyway database or Flyway DB that can run keeps track on the database which migrations have been run previously and detects if there's new ones included in the application and runs them to migrate the database between versions. And we have release notes on both the front end and server, also a migration guide and API changelog. But these are all compiled in a single page on Oskari.org currently, so you can access this documentation on the Oskari.org and see the changelog there. So you don't have to browse different Git repositories to see all the notes for the release. And the version number is part of the URL. You can select it when you are looking at the documentation. It defaults to the latest one, so but you can change the version. Well, yeah. So the main way is that you customize the applications, but of course, we are interested in improving the software. So if there's something that you think could be part of Oskari or improve some of the functionalities in Oskari, pull requests are accepted. If you do some more major changes, we have a Gitter chat. That's an easy way to ask if you should, if someone is, if you can modify things or like if it's okay to do a bigger change on the code base, basically. Or you can use GitHub issues, whatever. But those are like the main public ways of asking about changes. But of course, that will allow if you contribute to Oskari, others will benefit as well. And how we're doing this in National Land Survey, most of the changes we do are done for the Oskari server and front-end repositories. So that's basically how Oskari is developed. And what you see in demo Oskari org, here are a few examples. You can actually change between these. There's this drop down on demo Oskari org. This is the default view that is shown. Beneath the login fields, there's a drop down that you can select. This is the world view, and then the Finland, and a stylized app, and a 3D app. And what this basically demonstrates is that you can have a different theming between these applications. The menu changes in this white one to the right hand side. You can see the pop-ups are a bit different, the colors are a bit different. These are old screenshots, so the logo is still the old one. We have a new one now. And the stylized version is looks maybe pretty terrible, but it demonstrates that you can add stuff around what the usual Oskari user interface is looking like, and even move the login fields to the outside the usual container, that the DOM container that the Oskari user interface is rendered to. Okay, then what goes on the server. So you have the Tomcat or Jetty or whatever Java servlet container that you use to run the sample server extension. That's the template sample server web app that you deploy, that you can use as a template to build your own, and then just replace the web app that is running on Tomcat or Jetty. Then you have the front-end application that is basically JavaScript and a single page application. It uses React, and we have some parts still using jQuery, and the build is done with the Webpack. You can have it hosted through the Tomcat or Jetty, or you can have it in a separate server with Nginx or HTTPD. It's just static pages that you are serving for the front end. Then you have the PostgreSQL database. If you want to allow users to add their own vector features like drawing dots and lines and polygons, or importing from shapefiles and stuff like that, you need the PostGIS extension. But if you don't enable users to do that, you can work with the standard Postgres. Redis is also optional. You can use it or it's used for caching. And then if you have a server environment where you have multiple web apps running parallel, so you have a couple of Tomcats on different servers, Redis is used to so the web apps can communicate with each other, like sync session information and flushing caches and stuff like that. And the main way that Oskari differs from a lot of others similar kind of things is that we don't actually host the the maps or the data. We use services that you can register on the map layer. administration to just point to a server that has the VMS, VMTS, VFS, OGC API interfaces and fetch the maps from there. And same with the statistical data. You can fetch the data from different kind of APIs. Okay, so the main configuration file in Oskari is called this Oskari-ext.properties. So it's a Java properties file that you can use. Well, the first thing is probably changing the where your database is hosted and which credential it uses. If you just set up a database on your local host on the default Postgres port and create an empty database called Oskari DB. With these credentials, you don't need to change this. But so that's like a easy way. If you just set your environment like this for development, you don't need to change anything. But for production, obviously you want to change these. So one way of doing it is using the properties files, or you can define environment variables with this Oskari prefix and replace the dots with underscores and uppercase everything on the key. These will override whatever is in the Oskari-ext properties file. So that's something that if you set up in some cloud services or similar environment, you will probably want to do these. Use the environment variables. So everything in Oskari is hosted in GitHub on the Oskari organization. We have the template sample server repository there that uses the Oskari server or the code in the Oskari server repository to build the actual web app that's running on Tomcat. And the same structure with the front end. We have the sample application that it's the template for the front end application that uses code from Oskari front end, and you can also use this contrib repository for some if you want to. For example, the terrain profile tool is, if I remember correctly, on the contrib repository. But if you don't use any bundles from that are located here, then you won't need it. You can just use the Oskari frontend bundles. Okay. Some concepts that are used on the user interface. So tile is basically these menu options that's on the main navigation. That's called a tile. And sometimes also the map is or the stuff that's shown on the map is called map tiles. So there can be some confusion what we mean with tile, but with the UI, it's these menu options here. Another concept is flyout, which is this map layer window here. So usually when you want some new functionality added, you do a bundle that adds a tile to the main navigation that then opens a flyout when you click that tile. So bundle is like a functionality that, or like a technical term for a software package that you want to include in your application to bring some functionality to that application. Then there's a concept of app setup, which is basically a listing of bundles with configuration per bundle that will then form a set of functionalities that is basically the application you see on the browser. So this is app setup is basically a list of bundles Pop-up is a different kind of window. It's this more rounded one. Toolbar is this part in the main navigation here. So any functionality can add buttons to this toolbar. So this is done in a modular fashion, same way as the main navigation. So when you pick a bundle to be part of your app setup and you start that bundle, it brings in a functionality, so it can add the tile on the main navigation, and it can add some buttons on the toolbar or whatever it needs. But these are not hard coded in a way that if you don't want some functionality, you can just remove the bundle from your application and the user interface will be modified accordingly. A plugin is used as a term to usually refer to these UI components that are on top of the map. So like this button that is here, or the search bar, anything pretty much that is on top of the map, excluding these windows that are in this screenshot are also on top of the map, but it's like a user interface components that are always on the map. Those are plugins. Well, event is pretty standard. What's in application in any application. So when something happens, for example, user clicks on the map, there's an event triggers that you can listen to programmatically. Request is like a more of an Oskari concept that, for example, this map layers bundle can request the main navigation to show the tile here. So it's something that a service, programmatic service for a bundle to do some operation when another bundle asks it to do it. Kind of like an event, but usually there's only one bundle handling these requests, and multiple bundles can request for a thing to be done. And then for the event, then it's usually that way that the event is listened by multiple parts of the application, if that makes sense. Then another concept is action route, which is like the server endpoint that the front end can call. And it's easy to add these routes on the server if you need new ones that for your application specific needs, you can add an action route on the server, and then there's like a simple helper function on the front end how to reference that action route on the front end to call it. Okay, so these are the customizations. So on the sample server extension GitHub repository, these are the flyway migrations. You can do them as SQLs or Java files. And when you want to modify your application, these are some things that you want to take a look at. For example, the initial users SQL will include the same users that you see in demo.oskari.org. So you will definitely want to remove those from your application, and you might want to initialize some different data providers or add your own application specific bundles on your application. For the thematic maps, this one registers the region sets that are used for the statistical data. Similar slide for the Java-based migrations. this initial DB content is basically initializing the app setups on the database. So the applications that you see in demo.oskari.org are all four are initialized in this file. Again, with statistical data sources, tuning some permissions for the region sets. It's easier to do with a Java migration than a SQL one. This one adds the new app setup for the red application demo. So this is the first three, and this is the fourth. And then there's example how to add a bundle for the app setups that you have. When you want to add some bundle to the application, you can look at that as an example how to do that. So what the application setups really look like, they have some name, like the embedded maps have a name, they have a type. They can be public or just for the user. Then there's some technical details. The theming is there, and then there's a list of these bundles that are referred with the bundle ID. So this is basically the app setup that lists that these functionalities will be used in the application. And you can see an example that this file is this one on the sample server extension. I'm running through so we can catch up on time. So we released Oskari 3.0 this year, where we updated the minimum Java version from 8 to 17. That allowed us to upgrade GeoTools and the Spring and a bunch of other dependencies that we use. So the minimum version to run Oskari is 17, but you can run it with more recent versions as well. For developer purposes, the how the bundles are defined in the front end code has changed a bit. So we previously had this what is included in a bundle was listed under this packages folder in a bundle.js file, and the actual implementation of that bundle was under this bundles folder. And now we are moving away from these packages definitions and just use index.js next to the actual implementation files. And we've heavily reduced how the bundle is introduced, or streamlined how the bundle is introduced in the front end. So basically it's this line at the bottom that replaces all of the long, like 100-line file that these bundle.js files were previously. And you can see an example in this pull requests what that means. You would no longer have to point the bundle to its localization files either. They are detected automatically using convention that they have this like a preset folder that the build looks for and recognizes that there's localizations for the bundle. And this is like the most basic bundle that you can have. When you start the Hello World bundle, it just prints Hello World on the console log, but this is all the code it needs. Or you can skip the import if you have this in the same file, basically. How well are we on time? Do we want to continue or skip through these?
Unfortunately, we have to skip through this. We are already a couple of minutes over time.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check if there's anything more that I... No, that's really it. So this was just that you can customize. If you do a search on the front end, where does the search request actually end up and how you interpret what that service answers and show it as search results on the front end. It's a concept with called search channel on Oskari server. So the backing service can be pretty much anything. I think that's it.